broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey there, Agent Carter fans. Welcome to another jarvelous episode of Agent Carter here on AFTERBUZZ TV. I couldn't even say it.
It's jarvelous.
Jarvelous.
It's a long A at the beginning.
Jarvelous.
Yeah.
Yes, and you guys can bet we will definitely be using that hashtag in the future. Let me go ahead and introduce my fantastic panel for tonight's episode as we talk about Season 2, Episode 4 of Agent Carter, Smoke and Mirrors. To my left, Steve Kaufmann.
Yes, I am to your left. You can find me on Twitter at Steve Kaufmann, Kaufmann. So happy to be returning to this show.
Even further to my left, Jesse Klein.
Hey, what's up, everyone? You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at JessKlein1, JessKlein, the number 1.
As you may or may not have noticed, I am not Zach Wilson or Emma Fife, but I did steal his hat. Yep, that is a fact, and I'm keeping it, Zach. There's nothing you can do about it. I am Megan Salinas. You guys can tweet at me at @TheMenguin. That's TheMenguin. We are also going to be keeping an eye on the hashtag ABTVCarter for all of you guys on Twitter who want to participate in the conversation. We're also going to be keeping an eye on the live chat, so that'll be fun. And guys, I really appreciated this episode. I like this one. I know we were talking about potential pacing problems last week, and I feel like this episode was very, very well paced and very well done in terms of tone and moving the plot along and character development.
Yeah, this might have been my favorite episode of Agent Carter, including last season. I really, really liked it. I thought it was really well directed. I thought the pacing was good. I thought the flashbacks and the kind of parallel flashbacks between Frost and Carter, where both of them, where Carter's being told what a woman is as well as Frost is, just in very different situations. I thought it was really well handled. I thought the showrunner really paced it well, and the music in the flashbacks was fantastic, especially the music where it was Carter and the code breaking. I thought that music was amazing, really jazzed.
What he said. I'm typically his life model decoy, so it's jarring initially for both of us to be on the same.
Seeing double.
Yeah.
For both of us to see for both of us to be on the same frame. But yeah, we got more information from Captain America 1, Peggy Carter, than we've ever received before.
Yeah, no, it was, I thought it was very interesting when the episode started off on a flashback of her, and it made me realize, I was like, have we not gotten flashbacks of Peggy Carter before?
No.
And seeing her as a little girl, it is absolutely not a surprise at all what she was doing when she was a little girl. Running around, saving damsels in distress, slaying dragons.
Cutting heads off dragons. Yeah. If you cut one off, two will grow. Don't you know this?
She needs to learn. Yeah. She spends her whole life fighting those dragons.
I want to talk about these backstories, but we are going to be talking quite a bit. Speaking of Hydra, we are going to be devoting probably a good section of this week's episode to talking about the Council of Nine and Hydra in its current iteration, because there is a lot to unpack now that we know their name.
We got a lot of info.
Although I feel like they're not Hydra.
I think they might not know they're Hydra, but I don't know if that means they're not Hydra.
No,
because with S.H.I.E.L.D., people who haven't been watching S.H.I.E.L.D., this symbol, the ram's head symbol, is a symbol that's been used throughout time, and it's been Hydra's kind of go-to card, and people have been working for Hydra and have had no idea that they were working for them, like what's her name in S.H.I.E.L.D., I forget her, the woman who was the antagonist and then the love interest for Coulson. She had no idea she was working for Hydra. But this symbol,
Roz.
This symbol has been used by kind of by shadow organizations and organizations that might not have been as nefarious as Hydra is, but it is still, you are working for Hydra, you just don't know it.
Yeah, and the other thing is that Hydra, since we know it's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, it's taken on different forms and different names, and we pointed out that one very prominent form of Hydra was very much that whole Nazi thing going on, the Red Skull's forces. That was, I guess, the militant aspect of this insidious organization. But the fact of the matter, and so if you want to call that faction Hydra and then everything else, it's like calling one like sub company one name when their parent company is something else. It's all the same thing.
Because I think that's what we mean, that Hydra is the kind of an ancient order of running things, and we just happen to know it as Hydra. So, but like I think the military arm, like the Arnim Zola version that we all know, isn't in play right now. I think he's still infiltrating Leviathan, and then Leviathan's going to infiltrate this current one.
They're both in jail right now.
I know, yeah.
Well, I think what it... Okay, so they introduced the Council of Nine, which is part of the Marvel universe, the part of the Marvel comic book universe. The Council of Nine is part of something called the Secret Empire, which is this antagonistic force that was headed by the Red Skull for a very long time, and was part of Hydra, was part of AIM, or AIM, more like AIM was part of it. At one point, S.H.I.E.L.D. was part of the Secret Empire. Spider-Man and Moon Knight and the Punisher thought they destroyed the Secret Empire for a while, and they've been around forever. And much like how Hydra's being used in the MCU, it's just this shadow organization that's been pushing things in the direction it wants to go for however long, hundreds of years.
Yeah, and again, not to talk too much about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but we actually had somebody tweet us a screenshot from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this season when they're going through the different pictures of the Ram's Head, and there actually is a picture of the Arena Club that's there laid out on the table with everybody. We had somebody tweet that to us. I wish I knew offhand who did that, but it's way too far down in the hashtag. But thank you to whoever. I will send you another thank you later on, because that was spectacular.
Also, thank you to everyone in the chat. They gave me a good laugh when they're talking about the Hydra koala.
Sure.
Because
koalas are ferocious.
Howard Stark's koala, they're trying to imply that he's Hydra.
If you want to weaponize koalas, look at Agents of Hate in Marvel's. They have weaponized koalas in that. Also weaponized Elvises, but regardless.
I think we're all in trouble if they decide to weaponize Bernard Stark.
I'll be very angry.
Agent Brian on Twitter tweeted at us a picture of Jarvis chasing around the flamingo. Bernard Stark will win the Game of Thrones. And I just appreciate that a lot. So thank you. Please send me more of those. That is just delightful. But yeah, let's go ahead and get back to this episode, because we get backstory, and we see that both Peggy and Whitney Frost, or Agnes, I suppose, they come from very similar backgrounds in terms of everybody telling them that they can't do the things that they want to do because they're women. Agnes gets scolded by her mother, and we have a nice callback to Jessica Jones, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah, we see it later at the very end with Ned Silver wearing a purple suit, telling her to smile, which we talked a lot on the Jessica Jones podcast, is kind of a trigger word for a lot of women, where it's men trying to control a woman and telling them how to feel. I'm sure Megan can hit on this more, but it's basically used where a guy will see a woman who's looking not happy and telling them to smile because you would look better if you smile, and it would make me feel better to tell you how to feel. And that's basically the Purple Man, Kilgrave, the main antagonist in Jessica Jones. His whole thing is about controlling people, whether they want to be controlled or not. And so we got a nice... Ned Silver was clearly wearing a purple suit, and I think it was a nice little homage to Jess Jones.
Yeah, and again, it's skin crawling, but at the same time very fitting not only for the time period, but stuff that still goes on now. It's a very subtle form of sexism, so it's very easy to see how that gets incorporated into their backstories and gets incorporated into her outlook on life, because she's very blatantly told that it doesn't matter if you're a genius. It doesn't matter if you can do all of these amazing things because you're brilliant. Nobody cares. This is the only thing anybody cares about.
Well, and she kind of winds up proving it as well. That she's a genius, but people don't fawn over her until she's just a glamorous movie star.
Well, being a genius, it doesn't put money in her pocket. It's being pretty and smiling at the right people and pretending to be the thing that everybody expects her to be. That's what gives her the authority to do all of these things that she is capable of.
Yeah, and I think her backstory hit on something that we don't really see a lot in American fiction and like in our culture, which is hitting on the post World War I widows who were kind of left in a depression and had no way of making any money. And that's kind of where her mom was kind of stuck. She was kind of living in this house that another man owned and owed her basically her entire existence to this guy who was just there to have sex with her basically and then leave them alone. It's a very interesting part of American history that doesn't get touched on at all. And I thought it was a very kind of cool way of kind of hitting that in this episode, and then seeing the flip side in Great Britain, where Great Britain was kind of enjoying prosperity after World War I and kind of like a boom, and seeing like where Peggy was coming from versus where Agnes is living.
Yeah, no, they very much come from different walks of life, because Peggy comes from a very affluent family, whereas Agnes was dirt poor. And so both of them, it's very, very different, and yet they're experiencing very similar things because of their gender. It's just in different ways. And when you're born on the bottom like Agnes was, you have to learn how to do everything you can to claw your way back up and prevent yourself from ever getting to that point again. Yeah. So her motivation is very interesting, and I also thought it was very interesting how, given what we know about her now, how she went about trying to figure out what's happened to her. She was very scientific about it. We cut from her drawing diagrams of the radio in her notepad when she's a child, straight to her jotting down notes for her first experiment, killing these lab rats.
Which, if she's teleporting people with her blood, that means at least the director has something to eat.
Assuming he stays corporeal enough to do that. I don't think that's how it works.
Although I guess the listening device. Yeah. Wherever that went, the frequency doesn't travel.
No.
We want to. Hey, was I the only?
I don't get reception on my phone in here. There's no way they're going to get reception on that thing in another dimension. Was I the only one who thought
that immediately? No. That I was like, the listening device is going to go wherever she zaps people.
And I did not.
I mean, they could touch on that in the next episode because they don't know what happened to this guy. But then again, we don't know what happened to this guy. Did she absorb?
I don't think she does either.
What if when Wilkes disappears, he goes to wherever she's sending them?
Maybe. Again, we're assuming that she's sending them somewhere.
We are.
I mean, they very well could be broken down on a molecular level at this point.
Well, no, I think she's somehow conduit of the...
Like, she's just channeling this.
Yeah, but she's... whereas usually it's the explosion that's picking everybody up with zero matter. She's the conduit for zero matter, and ultimately also the explosion. Because that little tear in what I would imagine would be like time and space. Too much Doctor Who? Maybe?
Every time I see it, I swear I think it's a crack in the universe. Yeah, I hear you.
That makes the most sense.
What I think what it is that she's acting as maybe conduit is the word you're thinking of. I'm thinking like she's acting like some sort of incubation thing for the zero matter, because every time she uses it, the containment unit, as it were, her body is breaking down, and we see that little by little.
Yeah, the crack getting bigger. I feel like I'm closer to Megan on this. Can we talk about how amazing Haley Atwell was in this episode?
So
She put
good.
on a clinic. Like, her ability to play young Carter was amazing. Like, she was so believable as kind of like this innocent, like, code breaker who was trying to fit in with like all the other girls, and like she brought on like a different vocal quality. She had a different physical quality. The way she stood is way different than we've seen how she stands now that she's an agent who has to be like prepared for stuff. Like, she really did an amazing job. I've always thought she was a good actress, but this was a step further. Like, she was amazing in this episode.
No, cutting back and forth between the past and the present in terms of how she carries herself then and carries herself now. You're right. It's like looking at two very different people.
Yeah.
And I like finding out that she had a brother. It's a bummer he got fridged, but at the same time, it's like, as somebody who has brothers, I'm like, yeah, that is a very believable brother-sister relationship.
That relationship was fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in 2 scenes.
Exactly. We had literally like 2 scenes with Michael, and it did an exemplary job of defining their relationship and how close they were.
And it also kind of showed the distance between who she really is and who her fiance thinks she is.
Exactly.
Like, when he's talking about like throwing one back and stuff like that, he's like, her? Our bag? Like,
Well, and yeah, it was very interesting that they kept talking about what we want, and we don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
We want a nice, boring life.
Actually, pre that scene, I was a little like I was having trouble accepting the first scene where she just has a ring and she's just coming in and like very no agency in her own life. Like, I couldn't even recognize this person as Peggy Carter.
Yeah. It's so different. You're like, Peggy Carter's not like that.
Yeah.
Peggy Carter's not
Peggy
like
Carter-
all acting super stoked about some man.
Because up top,
Peggy
like
Carter's hitting people with the butt of a rifle and throwing them in
Yeah,
the
like-
trunk of a car.
Yeah,
Like, Peggy
she's
Carter-
shooting people with rhino tranquilizers.
Like, Peggy Carter doesn't need an old British man to convince her to be a spy. Like, she'd chomp at that bit. So it's actually really interesting to know that there was an arc there before we ever met
and again,
her.
this is 7 years in the past, and her exact words are, "I don't think I'm cut out for that sort of thing." Where it's like, do you, or is that just what everybody's told you, that you're not cut out for that sort of
I'm
thing?
also wondering if there's a piece we're still not seeing where she went from someone who's slaying a dragon on the schoolyard, if you will, to that's
Like,
not something
where
I'd be
was-
cut out
Trying
for.
to fit in.
Yeah,
Where
there's
was
something.
the turning point where she decided that what everybody said about her was right, in terms of everybody saying that this is the way she needs to act? I mean, it's a lot. I hate to say it, but that is kind of growing up. A lot of people get very disillusioned, and they push their dreams aside as something childish because they're told, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to get a job, you need to do this.
Yeah.
And that's what being an adult is. And so a lot of people do that. So it's not that far-fetched. It's just really jarring to see without any lead up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hear you on that one. But yeah, Haley Atwell, absolutely stunning job in this episode.
Also, everyone in the chat is saying that fiance, Fred, is Hydra.
well,
Ghost 8386, Hydra fiance.
if we look at the type of people that are in this old boys club, they're not soldiers. They get soldiers to fight for them.
What if Fred's a secret koala? And then that leads him to Hydra.
That's something else entirely different. That's even more nefarious.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out, since you brought
Yeah.
up the possibility of her being involved with somebody in Hydra, the organization, and Jesse, you were pointing this out because now it's like we see the ram's head and everything, that the SOE kind of had an also similar logo.
The SOE, and if you look behind us, the SSR also has that triangular with the eagle's wings. Also has a very similar kind of triangular ram's head figure, and it's that kind of V-shaped thing. Yeah. And it sounds crazy, except the fact that we're dealing with the MCU, where almost nothing is coincidental. If this was any other show that was in any other universe, I would not even think about it. But the fact that eagle does have a similar shape to the ram's head, you have to at least look at it. Because after seeing S.H.I.E.L.D., after seeing NASA be part of the ram's head and be part of Hydra, like, we have to now look at everything with that same, with the exhaust coming from the shuttle, that's barely the same shape. So if that works, then pretty much any of these things work.
And you gotta hand it to them for, like, immersive branding. Yeah. That's for sure. But,
very immersive.
Very much so. But but it's interesting, and they also keep hammering in that these guys are everywhere, which is something that we really didn't get any hint of until we came to Captain America 2 Winter Soldier, and we saw how insidious Hydra had been in infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D., and now that is in the back of our minds when we watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and now even more so here because they are blatantly saying that they're dealing with organizations that deal with governmental corruption on a very, very high level, to the point where you go to one municipal judge and boom, you get an executive order from DC stopping you in your tracks.
And you get Vernon Masters coming in and throwing around, you don't want to be
independent thinker.
Yeah, you don't
red
want to
scaring.
be independent. Doing red scaring, talking about the Hollywood 10, which were people who got blacklisted, couldn't work in Hollywood because people thought that they were communists. Like, this era is a very dangerous, like, part to be someone who kind of goes away from what everyone else is thinking. Like, it's dangerous to be different at this time in the United States.
Yeah, I'm just picturing the independent thought alarm from The Simpsons. Okay, I respect your individualism.
Yes.
Click. 2 independent thought alarms in one day. The SSR is overstimulated. Take away the colored chalk. Anyway, but yeah, let's talk about this whole subplot with Peggy kidnapping Mr. Hunt, and then where that brings us to when the FBI comes down on the SSR. So what did you guys think of this whole sequence where they went about trying to catch this guy? Because every time they tried something and it failed, I kept thinking, what happened to this guy? What happened to him and his backstory that literally made him an unstoppable, like, killing machine? Like, they shoot him with rhinoceros tranquilizer,
well, they mentioned,
and it does nothing until they hit him again, and then again.
Well, he mentioned he was in Japan, meaning he would have fought in the Pacific, and, like, probably meaning he was a Marine, not in our world, but probably the MCU.
Before the war?
He would have to be, to depending on where he fought in the Pacific, to actually get out, because that was a high casualty fighting.
He said he was tortured.
Yeah.
He said he was tortured. So this is a guy who got through some Pacific theater torture, which is like putting a rat in a bag and tying that rat over your head.
Ugh.
And like leaving that there, like putting bamboo under your fingernails. Like, it's not great torture. It's not the luxury vehicle of torture. It's an old Toyota Camry that has springs coming out through the seat. It's not good. So this guy's tough.
Yeah.
And I liked that he was just like, that sequence where Peggy got him twice with a dart and he still kept fighting, and then we got the payoff with Jarvis who also got the dart and then was talking in his sleep about a horse.
It's a very big horse.
It's a very big horse.
And again, we got the term Jarvelous, which I have a feeling we're just going to be using for the rest of the season now.
Pretty much.
Jarvelous is fantastic.
Yes, you can use it for so many things.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful adjective. But yeah, so we learn from this guy, and I like that she bluffed, because I was actually really worried when we saw the promo last week that Agent Carter was going to cross some lines, and in a way she did, because she committed a felony to kidnap this guy.
But,
yeah.
On the other hand, I was expecting it to get far darker than her just giving him a cold.
Although this happens a lot with TV shows, because the people who make the ad don't make the show.
Very true.
Yeah.
So they make the show, and then ABC is just like, Peggy Carter crosses the line. Ting, ting, ting. She's gonna inject somebody with poison.
Yeah.
And then we watch it, and it's like, that wasn't the line she crossed.
No.
Yeah, I mean, she references Elliot Ness, who is, again, if you're not familiar with American history, was given kind of carte blanche to hunt down gangsters, which meant he could break the law, he could shoot people, murder people, no judge, jury, just was allowed to do whatever he wanted to. As long as it was to take out gangsters in the United States.
And if you don't have time for American history, this is Boardwalk Empire. You can just
you
watch
can
Boardwalk
watch
Empire.
There's also some good movies out there about Elliot Ness. Anyway, I don't think Peggy... I think Peggy, she is a killer because she's a soldier, but I don't think she crosses that line as easy as other people do. I think because of Captain America, because she feels like she needs to fill that void of who he was, that I think she tries not to cross that line unless she absolutely has to.
Yeah, no, and that makes complete and total sense. Not only did she already have strong morals prior to knowing Cap, but now knowing him and having lost him, yeah, there are definitely going to be lines she won't cross. So that makes complete and total sense. It was a funny bluff, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because you guys were asking as it happened, like, do you think she really did that? And I was like, no.
Like, there was a 2-second period where I'm like, was that a bluff? It's a bluff, right? And then it turned out to be a bluff. But there was just enough doubt for me to go, I don't know, this guy's kind of a monster. He did try to kill her and Jarvis, so that's not good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But then again, as she pointed out later on, he's no good to them dead either. So he gives them some names, and again, he makes it very clear, and it just gets hammered into us again that these guys are everywhere. That even if he was to get away from Peggy and Sousa, that there's no running from this organization. There's nowhere he can go where he'll be safe.
Does anyone picture him if he were to have just gotten out clean, just like going to a diner and eating all the cake? Just like, there's no running.
There's no running.
There's no running. Well. Give me all the whiskey and all the cake until the Council of Nine gets here.
Is that what you would do if you were on the run and you thought you were going to get escaped?
The Council of 9-layered German chocolate cake, please.
Oh, we got a tweet from JDM on Twitter. Apparently, the Jarvalicious, and I don't know if this is true, but it's been tweeted at us, so it's the internet. But apparently, that Jarvalis was an ad-lib.
Really?
Apparently it was an ad-libbed line. That's hilarious. If that's true, that's hilarious.
That's a good ad-lib.
It's a very good ad-lib. So yeah, let's get back to, before we move on, by any chance, Steve, do you happen to have iTunes up?
Maybe. Kind of. I do.
By any chance, are there comments on the iTunes?
There are. Which dates am I stopping at?
I don't think, have we read off any? We haven't read any comments so far. So we want to take a minute and say thank you guys.
Yeah. So thank you guys.
Thank you guys, because it's your continued support that allows us to keep putting on this show. And it takes very, very little time to go to iTunes, rate, leave a comment. It's the best way to let the producers here at AfterBuzz know that you like the show that we're putting on, that you like the Agent Carter After Show, and that you like the Marvel team here at AfterBuzz. And if you can't get enough of it, there is also a new Twitter account, ABTV Marvel, so that you can keep up with all of the Marvel after shows here.
It's funny, that account hasn't followed me yet. And it's interesting.
And if you're international and you want to rate us on iTunes so we can see it, just tweet us a picture of your rating and we'll read it on the air.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we love that there's an international audience for all of the shows that we put on. It blows my mind to hear that we have fans in Japan and Brazil and all over the world.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much.
So August 9th, just caught up on this podcast, must tackle S.H.I.E.L.D. next, and I must say I'm very pleased with this after show. Wonderful panel, wonderful theories, wonderful overall. Here's to seeing you on season 2. That was _ Melissa Arnold, Leanne Coach, Koch, Coke. It'll be Coke.
Yeah,
you guys are my favorite AfterBuzz team, and I'm so glad you're covering season 2. Can't wait. J Renee 424. I enjoy listening to this after show. Mama Little 7.
Mama Little 7!
Yeah.
Mama Little 7.
The first episode was awesome. Can't wait to see how they wrap it up. I predict Sousa dies this season.
No! I refuse.
Wet Rats. I love the job y'all are doing on the show. I love the enthusiasm, but please stop saying it's set in the 1950s. The show is in the late 1940s.
We did get some comments on that. 1947, we're aware.
Yep.
I'm reading unedited comments,
okay.
but clearly...
JJ Mara's in the chat. Switzerland.
Switzerland.
Oh, hi, Switzerland. That's so great.
Your panel is great, and I love all of you. So excited about season 2. I just want to bring up one thing you guys might not have hit on, paying attention to the female relationships and how they're not acting to be jealous. Unlike Anna, I'm gonna take a screenshot and send you guys this one.
We appreciate it.
Ernie KD, great podcast for a great show. So delighted to have the podcast and show back. Great way to keep the fun going later in the week. Probably best line up of discussers of all the After B shows. Love ya.
Aww.
We're discussers in a chat show.
Born guy in the chat. Canada.
Woo! I hope I can make it out to Canada this year. I'm so excited.
This is option 0. Like my Golden State Warriors, rolling over the NBA, ABTV's Marvel coverage continues to dominate with another fantastic panel. The best side effect of Marvel expanding across ABC and Netflix is that we get more Zach, Jesse, Megan, Emma. If only Soapy Mark, Jamie Elias, Stephen Lemieux could show up. No mention of Steve Kaufmann.
If only Stephen Lemieux could show up. Hey, guys.
Stephen Lemieux.
You don't see me, but I'm here.
Vincent Curtis, Canada as well. We got some Canadian friends.
Aw, you guys are awesome. Does that do it for the iTunes comments?
There are 3 more.
Okay, cool. Let's zip through them. We're
Yeah.
running out of time.
Mr. Poop Maghoul, who is my favorite username so far. Before I knew of AfterBuzz TV, I used to get really sad after all my shows ended because I had to wait a week for them to come back or get more. But now I have you guys, and that makes the in-between much more fun. I truly enjoy listening to you guys talk about Agent Carter. Thank you so much. Kurt GR, look up the biography of Howard Hughes, owner of RKO Pictures, TWA Airlines.
Oh, yeah,
the
good
airline
stuff.
Carter took to Los Angeles. He's a mix of Walt Disney as well. Howard Hawks and Howard Stark, Walt Disney. I'm so happy this panel is back. I was very bored during the hiatus, and the hilarious and insightful commentary from you wonderful people. P.S. You said you won't be singing on this podcast.
We lied.
But I will not be opposed if you do. Who said you're not singing on this podcast?
We said we wouldn't sing on S.H.I.E.L.D. This is Carter.
We
It's
were
clearly
very
different.
specific.
It's different.
Didn't you guys?
We did a little barbershop quartet thing in last episode.
Okay.
It was very brief. We kept it short.
Yes.
Well, not to mention, you guys totally sing on S.H.I.E.L.D.
We did once. We're not. I'm pretty sure we're not allowed to ever again. Anyway, let's go ahead and get back to
Let's do it.
to Vernon, because he is a scary, scary man when he wants to be. Again, I think we talked about it when he was first introduced. Takes you right back to RoboCop. He's just a scary man.
Or that 70s show as well. Just like,
I mean, yeah.
a typical 70s dad that can take you down 5 pegs in 5 words.
Yeah.
He was just very imposing, like a very clear threat against Peggy and then Sousa as well, where it's like, yeah, this guy is the guy who signs their paychecks, and him saying you better step in line because you don't want to drown when this tidal wave hits, is a very clear threat of we will bury you if you annoy us enough. And I think the thing we like about Peggy is when she gets that threat, all she wants to do is dig deeper.
Her response is, I'll manage, because she's had far worse. She's dealt with Nazis. She's dealt with Hydra. She's seen some stuff.
She fell in love with Captain America. Only for Captain America to also be in love with her. And then he's gone.
And then he died.
But I love that the way to get at her isn't saying we're going to, you'll be fine. Maybe you'll manage. Maybe you'll stay afloat. But your friends will drown. Yeah. And that's what gets to her. That's what makes her rethink her position and her strategy to go, And it also kind of speaks to, I think, a lot of the reasons why she also likes to work alone. Not only did she work alone a lot as a spy and work alone a lot because a lot of people around her were dismissing her, but now she actually has attachments to a lot of the people that she works with, and she's lost Cap. She's potentially lost Wilkes at this point, she probably doesn't want to lose anybody else that's on her team right now. They're very dear to her.
And last season was all about her clearing Stark's name. And so, like, she's over that. Like, she doesn't want to do that again with another group of people.
Yeah, no. Her entire career post-World War II could very well be just trying to clear other people's names, because that's what she was trying to do with Wilkes in the last episode, too.
Real quick, Scott G's from New Zealand. He's in the chat. Yeah.
What time is it all where you are at? Isn't it very late?
I don't know.
It might be very early.
It might be very early. It's
this might just be like
late.
it might just be like 9 or 10 a.m. somewhere. And they're just like...
But yeah, I mean, the threat against her friends is the way to hit Peggy, because because she's resourceful enough. She knows she's a super spy. Like, she can handle herself. It's more about how the people she surrounds herself with.
Yes.
Exactly. Super spy, she'll be fine on her own, but yeah, the second you put other people in harm's way, that's where she starts to have a problem, because she is so used to working alone. And even in this episode, she wanted to keep Sousa out of it as much as possible.
To protect Sousa, and then like she keeps having to play this game of like who to protect, who not to protect. Question, do we think Sousa is gonna back down, or do we think Sousa's gonna do...
I think he's gonna stick around for as long as possible, to the probable detriment of his relationship, because he says it himself. He's like, I got that same speech. I'm not scared. I'm with you to the end. I don't think he's gonna go back on that.
Yeah, Sousa's got the same moxie. He'll stick with it.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that could make him go back on that. Although I am still very suspicious of his two seemingly perfect soon-to-be fiance. He still hasn't proposed.
Yeah. Not yet ex-girlfriend, also not yet a fiance.
Are we all on board that she's probably Hydra?
I think watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has made me suspicious of any and all blooming relationships. Like, just all of them.
Although, speaking of Hydra in the MCU, I think watching any Marvel movie, especially ones that happen pre Captain America 2, where I'm just like, Obadiah Stane, he's Hydra. Definitely Hydra.
It's weird going back and like looking back into all of this.
That's destroyed all of our personal relationships. Every girl I go on a date with, I have to then go into their background and make sure they're not Hydra. It's just...
I can't tell you the number of relationships that have been ruined because of Hydra. Yeah. Guys, it's just the worst.
That's why relationships don't work. It's Hydra. It's
always Hydra. It's not anything like you're just not compatible or right for each other. It's always Hydra.
It's Hydra.
You're always dating Nazis, guys.
Or the Secret Empire, which is ultimately Hydra.
Same thing, same difference.
Yeah. The timeless order of Hydra.
Yeah. Although I do want to talk a little bit about Sousa, because we're getting a lot of really good performances this season. The acting has always been really good, but every time he looks at Peggy, I see the conflict just written all over his face, because he cares about her and he wants to protect her, but he's also trying to move on with his life. And he was very much taking the steps to that before she walked back into his life. And he sees her trying to move on too, and that hurts him. And so you can see that it's tearing him apart in a metaphorical way, in the same way that Wilkes has physically been torn apart.
Yeah, I mean, the chemistry between Peggy and Wilkes is just amazing. At the beginning of this episode, like, them talking about sense of body, like, in that entire thing, it's like, it must be frustrating. I was like, ah, and she was like, ugh. I was like, just touch him. Find a way to touch him.
We all giggled at that because we're all mature adults.
Yes.
But just also the whole thing with Wilkes being kind of a ghost.
Yeah.
I feel like that was... Stark was able to get him there really quick to not get him any further.
Yeah, and they keep running into dead ends. And Stark is still away on his safari somewhere.
It was in Peru.
Was it Peru?
Yeah.
Although, speaking of Red Scare, if Howard Stark is both like an amalgam of Howard Hughes and Walt Disney, for the most part, especially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Walt Disney named names at the Un-American Committee. So if a Red Scare is happening in this world,
Well, Howard is powerful enough to be very, like, and he was just recently, like, cleared of all treasonous charges,
Yeah.
so it would look really weird for different organizations to point the finger at him again immediately.
Well, I think I don't know. I kind of feel like he would name the Council of Nine. I'm saving that for a prediction.
I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in a few. But I do want to touch on what's happening to Wilkes. Because we can clearly see throughout this episode that something is happening to him. And we kind of were talking about it at the beginning of the episode. Is it that he's being drawn to whatever Whitney Frost is becoming? Is it that he himself, being corporeal, is just losing sense of what it was to be whole and he's being drawn to something else? What do we think is happening to him in this moment?
Yeah, I think it might be, I don't know, because like connection to who you are as a person, like your body is very, like, more important than we like to admit. Like, people who are paralyzed from the neck down lose their sense of self and lose their sense of, like, control over emotion and lose their sense of, like, control of joy and all of that kind of stuff. Like, your body tells you a lot of who you are, more than we think. And I think what's going with Wilkes is he is forgetting what it's like to be Wilkes. Like, as he's getting lost and trying to solve the problem of how to get himself back, he is also forgetting who he was before. And I think that's him kind of dealing with that sense of loss, and that he could let go and just become invisible forever. Or he could fight like Peggy thinks he will and find himself.
Well, and he says he even has to concentrate to just be there, to be present. And I don't want to say that if he does let go, it's going to be like he's one with the universe sort of thing. But clearly, he will change. I don't know if that's like moving to an alternate state of being, if that's what happens, or if he's just going to be able to, like, materialize somewhere else, a la Dr. Manhattan. I don't know. I don't know quite what's happening.
All I'm going to say is it's very strange. Did it. Waiting all day.
How long have you been sitting on that one? Really?
Since episode 1, actually. Since Zero Matter was introduced.
Get out.
Okay.
We've had fun here tonight. No. So yeah. Let's go ahead and move back to talking about this final scene with Whitney Frost, Hunt, and her husband.
Oh boy.
Because we all knew it was coming to an extent. We all knew that that's where it was going the second he went there and refused to talk to her. It's like, this guy clearly doesn't respect her, and he's messed up thoroughly. He's not going to make it.
With her practicing on the lab rats, it was a real Chekhov's weird gooey arm stuff.
What is that?
I mean, intense. And her husband, I think until recently, her husband thought he was in control of this relationship. And I think now he realizes that he is not in control of this relationship.
Yeah, because earlier when he's talking about her getting ready for the party, I swear he used beautiful half a dozen times in the span of one conversation, just talking about her. You're going to be the most beautiful first lady if we play our cards right. Yeah. That beautiful dress. They want someone beautiful on their cover. You know, like, I swear it was just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful right after we get her backstory hammering into us how important it is for her to smile and look pretty.
Yeah, and be pretty, because that's all anyone cares about. And how dare you even think anything like that? And it's just, it's fairly heavy-handed, but it was necessary.
Well, and
it made sense from what we learned here.
And it's very interesting that as her face is coming apart and her facade is coming unraveled, that she is becoming what she wants more and more. When she'll and again we're kind of looking ahead to when she is officially Madame Mask. When she becomes that, then there is no need to pretend anymore. She can be whoever she wants, which is kind of a parallel of what we had with Dottie too. Because Dottie was like, you can be whoever you want, when you live this kind of life. Maybe I'll be an SSR agent this time around. And that's exactly it. So it's very interesting looking at the way that an oppressive upbringing has brought up these three women to view what direction they want to take their life in now that they're all in a position of power. I think that's all very interesting. Yeah, that our two big antagonists are so similar to our hero, but just a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
No, I think it's... Is she really... I feel like she's more misunderstood at this point than going to be like a big bad.
Madame Mask or Dottie?
Madame Mask. But I think
I don't know. I think
is she just going to straight up turn?
People with dark force,
She's murdered
zero
2
matter,
people.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Has she...
I almost called it dark matter. That's not right.
Apparently, I have to be her lawyer now. We don't know what she did to those 2 people, Jesse.
She's disappeared 2 people against their will.
It's fair. I think she'll get a redemption at some point.
On
this season.
Megan's point, I think the best villains are ones that are close to the hero, that if it weren't for a couple choices or the thing that makes the hero, their sense of good, their sense of right, having like an avuncular person die and then tell them with great power comes great
I was going to say, it's very Spider-Man, isn't it?
like that they could easily be a villain. And that villain, if it wasn't for a few situations, they could have easily been a hero. And I think that's what makes, especially comic book villains, but also especially in the Marvel Universe villains, what makes them so interesting is that the villains are very close to the heroes as far as who they are and their upbringings. Like Doctor Doom and the Fantastic Four are very similar with the retconned kind of Doctor Doom origin. Spider-Man and Venom or Carnage, like these are
or
all...
just about any of his other rogues gallery
Yeah.
who happen to be scientists like him.
Yeah, like it's what makes the MCU or the Marvel comic book universe very interesting, and like seeing them translate it. Jessica Jones, you haven't seen it yet. No spoilers, but just like the idea
I'm
that
so close. I'm so close, guys.
What you do when you're given power and like how you approach that is very interesting. And it's like to see these people have similar enough backgrounds to see how they approach their world and how they take their power is very cool.
Yeah. I'll just admit to it now. The chat's letting me know. She's definitely the big bad this season. I thought it was maybe the Council of 9. She's going to get some type of redemption. No, I'm wrong.
Steve, I can see a world where she realizes she's being manipulated by the Council of 9 and in a last-ditch effort does some sort of redeeming thing.
That doesn't make her not the villain for 9 episodes.
Yeah, chat, you're right. Be mean to him.
Shame on you. How dare you have an opinion? But I will say that, like, it is possible that we could see a heel face turn when she realizes how much this substance is really tearing her apart.
Yes.
She could very well do a heel face turn in order to try to save herself.
She could go to Stark and need help.
Yeah, because, again, with every time she uses this, I'm waiting for her to just turn into a black hole. That is what I'm waiting for. And it looks like now that she's kind of losing her face, she's also approaching it with... And also the fact that, names have been given to Peggy Carter and the SSR in terms of council members who are involved. She's like, this isn't working anymore. And it looks like in the next episode, she's really taking very drastic steps to be like, okay, I'm in charge now. No more pretending we're doing things my way.
Is she losing her face or is she getting an awesome tattoo?
Maybe. I mean, that it is kind of a sick face tattoo right now, right? I like the way they've designed it too, that it looks like shattered glass. I really like that.
It's very cool.
Very well designed, and then I'm still not sure what it is.
Yeah, no, it's still really weird, but I really like that the CGI, when it's used for this purpose, doesn't look weird or cheesy. It looks terrifying, and I appreciate that. All right, well, guys, is there anything else you want to touch on in this episode before we move on to predictions?
No, I'm good.
No.
Just really, really great performances.
Now,
all
your AFTERBUZZ TV.
Really good stuff.
Oh, we got a Bernard reference. That's just for tracking Bernard. She said something about the flamingo. So just Guys, there was a Bernard reference.
Bernard Watch 2016.
Yeah.
It's important, guys.
It is.
This is important. So for the next episode, it looks like Chatwick and Frost go after an atomic bomb. That escalated quickly.
Yeah.
That did not take long at all. But this next episode looks like it's the episode that I've been waiting for the majority of this season so far. And that's the moment Peggy has her team together and they go in for a team mission.
Yeah.
Because this looks like it's going to be a lot of fun comedically, but at the same time, we have really high stakes because we're losing Wilkes. And, it's getting harder and harder for him to maintain himself. And there's a nuclear bomb. So, yeah, high stakes. But we can still have a lot of good old-fashioned fun. Yeah. And Rose is in on the action this time around.
I'm excited to see Rose in on this action.
It looks like so much fun. What do you guys think?
Next week, I don't have very much because it looks like they're moving. I think the tidal wave strikes me, because Leviathan was a water monster, strikes me very much that maybe Leviathan will be outed as like a modern day Hydra, like modern to that day Hydra, and then that would be an MCU Red Scare, because it sounds like the Red Scare in Hollywood, the Blacklist, that had already kind of happened in this world. So the Council of Nine, in order to like drum up more enemies, is going to do a tidal wave and have Leviathan be the big thing you go after, similar to a Red Scare. And
your scapegoat.
Yeah, your scapegoat. And then Howard Stark is going to do a House on Un-American Committees, name names, but he's just going to name the Council of Nine.
If he gets that chance.
Yeah.
He's got to get back from Peru first.
He's going to get back from Peru. Like, he's Howard Stark. He'll be around.
Yeah, I think just to look for more of the kind of tension between the West Coast SSR and the East Coast SSR, and them working with the FBI and working with, seeing Vernon Masters kind of like trying to push them in a certain direction. I think that in the end, Peggy is going to be working against Thompson, and either they will join forces and start doing the beginnings of S.H.I.E.L.D. I know that the showrunners say that S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't going to get formed this season, but like see that there needs to be something that is separate from the United States government, that is independent and can work by itself, or it's going to come to a head where it's going to be Peggy versus Thompson is going to be the actual final climactic fight.
I think and this is looking farther down to the end of the season stuff, I think that if that's true, if we're not going to see the beginning of S.H.I.E.L.D. This season, I think what we are going to see is the end of the SSR. Yes. I think that whatever happens in this season, it's going to leave the SSR in complete shambles. And our heroes are going to be left to pick up the pieces with what remains of it, and it's going to be probably midway through next season where they put it together, if we get a next season.
Yeah, I also think we could, when the SSR fails, I think we're going to get like a S.H.I.E.L.D. Light, which will just be Carter, all the good agents, and then Howard Stark's money.
But
like that would be S.H.I.E.L.D. Light.
But also a Hydra agent, because we know from Captain America 2 that S.H.I.E.L.D. was started with Hydra. That Hydra was part of the reason why S.H.I.E.L.D. was started.
Which is why, again, we're side-eyeing Thompson so hard. Yeah. Ugh.
But that feels too obvious. That feels like a misdirect, that Thompson's actually fine, and it's...
And speaking of misdirect, looking at the promo for next episode, where it looks very much like a confrontation between Frost and Peggy, I'm looking at this and I'm like, are they going to pull in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where we have somebody who's built up as our big bad, as a Whitehall, or something along those lines, and then they just get killed halfway through the season because they weren't the big bad of this season? I don't think she's getting redeemed, but I also think that she could die a very unceremonious death long before the end of the season.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the last season, Dottie did a lot of killing of people that could potentially be antagonists for Peggy.
Yeah.
Like the guy with the repeating gun.
There were a lot of really interesting characters, and she just snapped their necks. They're like, whatever.
All right.
This isn't about you.
Just gave us enough time to go, wow, that guy's really
cool.
Oh,
thanks,
he's
Dottie.
dead.
Dead. He's really dead. Thanks, Dottie. But yeah, and that's another thing. We haven't seen Dottie in a bit.
Yeah.
So very well, Madame Mask could die very, very quickly in terms of what we're expecting. And Dottie and Angie and everybody else from the East Coast could come back.
I think Dottie's going to name Peggy as a member of Leviathan or the Communist Party.
I could see that happening.
She's with the FBI. She's with, Vernon. Like, they could use her to get to Peggy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a ticking time bomb waiting to happen.
There's gonna be a lot of names named. I said that the second I heard it was like Red Scare Los Angeles. So many names.
We'll see. We did underwhelming.
Yeah, well, it was very underwhelming, like Athlete's Foot or something.
No,
he got shot in combat.
Okay, but I remember. Okay, I might be misremembering.
I don't know. If
it was
we
a
knew
while ago.
I don't know if we knew the specifics that it was Battle of the Bulge, but I think we did know he got shot in combat, and we don't know what happened because we know from Captain America or Captain America 2 that her husband was saved by Captain. So we don't know what the specifics are there, so it still could be Sousa.
It still could be Sousa, especially since he seems so reluctant to pop the question to his maybe Hydra girlfriend. We don't know.
Might be a Hydra girlfriend.
Likely Hydra girlfriend.
Likely Hydra girlfriend.
If your girlfriend has multiple heads, she might be a Hydra.
She might be a Hydra.
Oh, man.
Oh, Lord. All right, guys. Well, anything else you want to bring up about this week's episode?
No.
All right, that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you to everybody on the hashtag. Felix, I am getting around to watching Jessica Jones. I'm finishing up Daredevil first. Leave me be. I know it's important. But Jesse Klein, where can people go if they want to find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at JessKlein1. And if you're in the Los Angeles area, I do live comedy pretty much every night all over the place. So find me there.
Steve.
You guys can find me on Twitter at Steve Kaufmann. That is Kaufmann. And if I'm not doing live comedy, I'm attending live comedy here in Los Angeles. So if you go to his shows, you'll probably see me watching his shows. And you can be like, hey, Jesse Klein's life model decoy is watching him. It's weird.
Just hanging out.
Hanging out.
Well, guys, be sure to also follow Zach at that Zach Wilson and Emma Fife at Emma Fife. Emma is currently rocking it at the convention scene, so be sure to follow her on Twitter to get all the updates from that because I'm sure she's having a blast. It's going to be a lot of fun. And guys, you can follow me on Twitter at the Menguin. That's TheMenguin. I'm also on a bunch of shows here at AfterBuzz, including Ruby, Star Wars Rebels, whole bunch of fun stuff. I also write articles for the Movie Chick. That's Chick with 2 Ks. Be sure to check those out. Again, thank you to everybody in the live chat, everybody in the hashtag, everybody who commented on iTunes. You guys are the best. We will see you all next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Yeah, later!
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.